everyone, I was not expecting to do a video for E3. I like to watch it and I like to live tweet it, and Nintendo's presentation just ended, and okay, the presentation itself was pretty decent. There were actually a lot of great games. To me, it's what E3 is supposed to be, with a lot of games that we might not know exist. You know, even if we don't see footage, we find out that they exist. E3 is the biggest stage for these kinds of notifications and announcements. And I feel like the other companies, Microsoft, Sony, I feel like they fell short because most of what they told us, we had already known about, even seen in the last E3. So what we were getting were essentially just updates. We weren't getting a whole lot of brand new information. Some stuff looked great. God of War, or Dad of War, Beyond Good and Evil 2, which I never even played the first one, and I thought the Beyond Good and Evil 2 looked so good, I want to go back and play the first one. Like, there were some great announcements that we got. You know, during the Ubisoft presentation, which up until Nintendo, in my opinion, was probably the best presentation, we got a lot of information about the Mario Rabbids game. Mostly what kind of game it was. I thought it was going to be a party game, so I had really no interest because I've never really followed the Rabbids or anything like that. But when I saw that it was a tactical game, Final Fantasy Tactics is my favorite game of all time. So I was more than happy to see that. I was very ecstatic about that. And then Nintendo happened. And every year it's the same thing. We don't get Mother 4, we don't get Metroid 4, or Metroid Prime 4, we don't get Metroid 5. You know, we get another Mario game, we get this and that. They started off with Kirby, which is great to know that there's another Kirby game in the works, because I really do like Kirby. There's the Fire Emblem game. I apologize if I'm sweating. It's very, very hot in my room. We got, you know, some news on the Fire Emblem game and stuff like that. Like, you know, some pretty cool stuff. At the end of it, we saw a lot of Mario Odyssey, which, I'll be honest, looks amazing. But all we got was a teaser, and it was enough to jump me out of my seat. I'm screaming. If you follow me on Twitter, I did a bunch of those tweets where it was just letters, like random letters and stuff. I legitimately was trying to type something, and my fingers were tingly over how excited I was that we got an announcement that they are developing Metroid Prime 4. I am a massive Metroid fan, in case you don't already know that. I had pretty much assumed that the franchise was dead. I figured that it would be left to the wayside. You know, they would either focus on the IPs they always focus on, which is things like Mario and especially Zelda now with the popularity of Breath of the Wild, or they would do what we've been clamoring for, which is new IPs. You know, they sell Splatoon very heavily, which is an awesome game. They are pushing ARM. They're pushing the hell out of ARMS. Now they're doing this sort of versus thing where they want you to be very active in the versus community. So we're getting, you know, they're beefing up Pokken Tournament. It looks like they're pushing Smash a little bit more as far just in the tournament scene, not really games themselves. They're not developing a new Smash game that we know of. They're bringing Rocket League to the Switch. You know, they're really trying to push the versus environment, and which is great. I really appreciate that. So in the end, I wasn't actually expecting to be that surprised. Wow, just. And all we saw was, and you're probably laughing at me, and you're probably going to hit dislike because you're thinking this guy is freaking out over a screen that said a game is an announcement. But you got to understand, I actually was thinking about doing a video. I was all set to do a video on how kind of disappointed I was. You know, like I said earlier, E3 is the biggest stage for these kinds of announcements. So I was bummed out that we weren't getting those big announcements. You know, a couple here and there, but nothing that we didn't already know, and more importantly, hadn't already seen. So this is the sort of thing I'm looking for with E3. I don't need a 5-minute gameplay footage, you know, a trailer or anything like that. I want E3 to tell me what to expect. I want to be told updates as the year goes on, which is why I think Nintendo does it perfectly with the Directs. Make E3 about the big announcements. That's what people want to see at that event specifically. You have the rest of the year to tell us how things are going, to show us screenshots, to release a trailer. You can do that anytime. E3 is about shocking and amazing us. It's one thing to have it for the first time that even if we know the game exists, E3 can be the first time that you showcase the gameplay of it. That's okay. That, they did that with the Uncharted game, which is Tomb Raider. Come on. But, that's what we did. We hadn't really seen a whole lot of it, so we got to see some decent chunks of it. But showing games that we have already seen is kind of a waste of time. It's a waste of the spotlight. It's getting up on stage in front of millions of people to sing a song and you lip sync. There's nothing new there. There's nothing that it's going to shock people. Just getting on stage and saying, hey, Metroid Prime 4 was enough to have people going crazy. And to get their minds working. Because now it's clear that they care about some old IPs. Maybe they're listening to us. Maybe they are going to go back. Maybe we're going to see a Metroid 5. Something to continue after Fusion, since Metroid Prime is sort of separate. Maybe we will one day see a Mother 4. I've never been a huge fan of the Mother series, but I know that people are. And I know that they have been clamoring for some new attention to that series. Me personally, if I was to ask them to dig back for any old IPs, I'd want a new Star Tropics game. We've got 1 and 2, and those games, when you say Star Tropics, people usually know what you're talking about, and they usually regard it with some reverence. They talk about how, I love that game when I was a kid. They did that for Kid Icarus. Kid Icarus was always a game that, even though it was notorious for being difficult, most people talked about in a positive light. So eventually they brought it back, and now it's popular again. I mean, it had one game on the 3DS, but they brought the characters over to Smash. I think that people would be excited if they announced a new Kid Icarus game. It put the IP, it put the characters back on people's minds. F-Zero is another one that people really, really want to see a new one of. I wouldn't mind seeing a new one of that. I played F-Zero. I played the heck out of F-Zero on Super Nintendo. The 64 game was very good. From then, I never really played the GameCube one, so it just kind of petered off for me. But I would still love to see it. If anything, I'd love to see it for the people who do love it and who do really, really want it. So I'm still just blown away. I'm doing all of this off the cuff because I had something written for how disappointed I was about E3. And again, not to say that that there was nothing redeeming there. There were some really great games that we got to see, but nothing that really wowed us and blew us out of the water. And I basically just clicked delete on it because it's not true anymore. Nintendo ruined my disappointment. I'm not even sure how to feel about that. Anyway, guys, like I said, this was sort of off the cuff, so it was a little weird. I'm like, if I seem really pumped up and energized, if you ever watch my Let's Plays, I'm usually pretty mellow when I play the games. I'm a little more agitated right now. Not agitated like a bad thing, agitated like I'm all pumped up. And that is because of Metroid, and just because now what's happening is my mind is working on what it's going to be like, what it's going to be about, what's the gameplay. I mean, obviously the gameplay is going to be Metroid Prime, but what new spin are they going to put on it? Of course, there is that tiny bit of me that's worried that it's going to be bad, but I'm almost 100% sure it's going to be good. There's a large part of me, no pun intended there, large part of me that would love to see a Metroid open world type game where Samus lands on the planet and it's time to explore. And because that's the core of Metroid. You're on the planet, there you go, you're done. That's it. There might be some guidance, but ultimately it's for you to figure out. Could we get it with the popularity of Breath of the Wild? Could we see that in a Metroid game? I think it lends itself very well to Metroid. I would be more than okay with an open world style game a quarter of the size of Breath of the Wild, but she gets in her ship and there's also 3 other planets the same size. So we're getting a Breath of the Wild size game, but what we're getting is, instead of separating it through just, this is the desert, this is the mountains, this is the watery area, what we're getting, we're changing environments through the world, and even on those worlds we go through different environments. Each world has the overworld, which is sort of the same, but then you go underground and there's a different environment down there. This is what my mind does. The second I know that the game exists, I start trying to think of how it's going to exist, which is probably a bad thing. I may get my hopes up and be letting myself, and it's going to be a letdown when the game finally comes out. I have a feeling it's not going to be a letdown, but it's just fun to think about. It's just fun to theorize. It's fun to imagine. Anyway, I've talked for long enough. Thank you guys so much for watching this. Let me know in the comments what you think about just the Metroid series in general. Metroid, the series, is very important to me, which I think I talked about in a video before. It was a sort of a Federation Force rant, but then it also was talking about what Metroid means to me. So let me know what Metroid means to you, if it means anything at all. Let me know if there was anything in the Nintendo, I keep calling it the Direct, but the Nintendo Spotlight, if there was anything that interested you. If there was anything in E3 that interested you. Were you happy about E3? Were you bummed out about E3? But yeah, just give me a comment. And thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great, great night.